Here's something that I just want to talk about, right? So, I said it in a short video, right? But I feel like this needs a bit more of a longer one. So, mental health labels are all man made constructs, right? So, how often do you hear someone's mental health diagnosis and you go, oh, that type of person is bad, you know what I mean? So, you'll hear the common one, and that's why I was terrified of hearing it myself. That person is borderline, so it means they're psycho, they're a fucking lunatic. Don't be friends with them because you'll never get rid of them, you know what I mean? They're extreme in their emotions and all that stuff. Um, you hear narcissist, you think to yourself, they're very self centered, and that's definitely true, in a lot of cases. Um, they can work on that, but it is very hard, and they often don't because by its very nature, I am great. So why would I need to work on myself? It's you that has the problem. But like mental health labels are all man-made constructs, and I feel like they're getting overdiagnosed and they're getting done the wrong way. So a misdiagnosis can be just as harmful as not diagnosing someone at all, if not more, because if you diagnose someone, as my friend Stephen, who was on the channel from his band Super Static, if you diagnose him as schizophrenic like he was, when in actual fact it was kind of more of a borderline type thing, that means you get him hooked on antipsychotics. And if he's not psychotic without psychoactive drugs, why the fuck would you give him antipsychotics? Why the fuck would you do that? My brother's been prescribed antipsychotics and mood stabilizers and opioid withdrawal medication, so naltrexone. So why the fuck would you be giving that? He's not an opioid addict. He's not shooting up on the couch, and he's not smoking opium or anything like that. He's not an alcoholic either. He barely drinks, and it's used for that. So why the fuck would you be giving that medication? And that's what it's all done for. You have to slap a label on someone to then be able to get them hooked on a medication, because doctors can't justify getting someone on a medication without a condition. But I can tell you from personal experience, even just down here in Gorey, I have seen 9 different doctors in the short period of time that I've been involved, and I'm talking psychiatrists, in the short period of time that I've been down here and been seeking mental health treatment. 9 different people. How is that good for anyone? So no doctor's building up an actual rapport with me. No, none of them know me. They're just reading a file, so they're treating me like a subject as opposed to an actual human being. And that's why I emphasised it in my short video where I go, you're a human being first and foremost. Some human beings are arseholes. Some can be arseholes and need a lot of work to do on themselves because they had horrific circumstances, which doesn't excuse bad behaviour, but it certainly explains it. So, like, I feel we put far too much on labels. So, like, Izzy, one of my friends, from compassion focused therapy, she has borderline personality disorder, and I've been diagnosed with the traits emotional unstable personality disorder, as it's also known, EUPD and BPD, which is why I do the both of them. I don't like to say one or the other because I don't know if people know that it's now called emotionally unstable personality disorder, but that's what it is. That's what it used to be called borderline. Now it's emotionally unstable. You catch my drift. But mental health labels can be very damaging because she said that no doctors want to see her because they think, oh, borderline, she's a fucking lunatic. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, if you take conditions by their very nature, borderline is unstable. So it's someone who's very, very, how we even put it, volatile. That would be the way I'd put it. So if you think of, I think of alkaline metals, so sodium, for instance. If you drop that in water, it blows up. It's very volatile, on contact with water. Think of that as borderline, right? And human jeez, my voice went there, sorry. Human interactions are very difficult for people with borderline personality disorder, emotionally unstable personality disorder, because they've no sense of self, and if those are the symptoms, I can relate to that. But I wasn't allowed to develop a sense of self. I'm autistic, which is physical as well as mental, and there's truth to, that it is a condition, but that gets misdiagnosed a lot as well because someone's asocial. Doesn't mean that they've got autism. Like, I'm very outgoing, but I wasn't always that way. I developed those skills through trial and error, which was painful, but I'm glad I did because now I'm this wonderful human being that you see in front of you now. What do you think of someone with, say, cluster A personality disorders like schizoid and paranoid? Someone could be schizoid if they never formed any healthy emotional attachments. So what it is very flat affect, and you're not moved by good news or bad news. So I could tell you your granny died, and it'll be, oh, okay, or you've just won the lotto, and it's great, yeah, and it's just nothing there. So maybe none of your family were very emotional, or they never allowed you to be. You know what I mean? Um, they say schizotypal is like the it's like a spectrum of schizophrenia where you've got paranoid thinking, you've got you believe that some things are linked when they're not. Like an ad on the telly is speaking to you personally. Do you know what I mean? Like it's telling you something or giving you subliminal messages. Um, or you could form a relationship with a mannequin or an inanimate object. You know what I mean? Paranoid would be more, I can't trust anyone. Everyone is out to get me. So they're very schizophrenic like. Do you know what I mean? Where you are almost hallucinating, and I think with schizotypal you can, and I'm pretty sure with paranoid you can as well, but don't hold me to that. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just saying it's something that I've researched the hell out of, and I'm very interested in it, how the brain works. Someone I listen to, Dr. Joseph. I don't know if you like him, but I really like his stuff. And then there's Dr. Peter Gutsche. He's not German. My apologies. He's Danish. If I'm going to Denmark, I better learn the difference between the accents. But yeah, he's Danish, and he's saying that he believes antidepressants have no place in the mental health world. Psychiatrists have failed humanity, and he believes that mental illnesses are a construct. And I mean, that might sound like he's being harsh and he's not being very sympathetic or empathetic. He's both. He's very empathetic. And if you listen to him, what he's saying is the world that we live in is not very healthy. And as a result, we are developing these illnesses. And look, you're never going to get the world perfect. But if you look at it, the amount of greed and corruption, the stress that we're under, people are not healthy, mentally or physically. Like, you can even see it. And I was watching something about, semaglutides, GLP-1 medications. So you got your, obviously, Ozempic, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I can never tell. Wegovy, those types of medications. Fat jabs, skinny jabs, any kind of jab you want. But if you even listen to how they phrase that, right, so they'll say obesity is a disease and we need a medication for that disease, right? When in reality, is it a disease? Or are some people just more prone to weight gain? I'm more prone to weight gain, so is my brother. My family are more prone to weight gain. Sadly, we're all fatties. Like, me and my brother have exercised since we were very young. My mum exercised all her life. We've always exercised, my uncle the same. If we don't exercise, we put on weight. That's just a given. And you can say to yourself, oh, life isn't fair. Give me a fucking jab and I'll stick myself with it. Or you can go, okay, maybe I just need to watch what I eat a bit more than the average Joe. You can compare yourself, and we do. We always compare everything in this world. I've friends who can eat whatever the fuck they want and not put on any weight, but I've got friends that are dangerously underweight, even though they eat like a fucking trooper, you know. Um, but different body types, I'm not going to start begrudging them because I put on more weight than them. It's just the way things are. I have a different body type where I can't necessarily have the luxury of eating whatever the fuck I want, or have to get more sleep than them. That kind of thing, it's just the way it is. Like, they're not necessarily thinner than me because they just work harder than me. It might be the case, like sometimes that's the truth because if you're sitting on your arse eating shite all day with the best genetics, you can guarantee you're going to gain some fat, and you're going to slow down your metabolism and you'll get seriously unhealthy. You might get heart disease, but I've met people who can eat whatever the fuck they want, not do any exercise for a month or so, and they won't gain any fat really, or it'll be barely noticeable if it's off them like that in a week. That wouldn't happen with me. I'd be morbidly obese. So what? I have to keep active. So I go for my walks every day. I do stuff every day. I exercise all the time. I go for sea swims. And guess what? It makes me feel good. I enjoy doing it. So I'm going to do it anyway because I like it. So it doesn't matter that, oh, I have this mountain to climb. And I quite literally do. And I enjoy doing that as well, hiking and whatever. But I enjoy those things. They make me feel good. They release endorphins. I tried running. I'm after getting loads of injuries, like ankle injuries, knee injuries, and concussions, you name it, all this sort of stuff. So like now the concussion will give me a bit more dizziness. So when I try running, I start wobbling a little. I like cycling. I like walking. I do a lot of walking, so that's good for you. Keeping active. They have all these revolutionary pieces of information when I look at a village in Japan, and guess what? The people are all in good shape into their hundreds, even late 90s, early hundreds, and they're still out picking vegetables up and all this stuff. And you see these people who are experts and they're shocked, and it's like, oh, guess what? They're healthy because they don't eat a lot of processed shite and they walk around. They don't run marathons all the time, but they're always moving every day. Shocker, right? Fucking stupid. I find these studies pathetic. And how much do they cost? Just to tell us what we already know. Like, you must already know that. You'd have to be thick as pig shit not to know that. Um, but we'd rather not believe that, wouldn't we? We'd rather believe that it's not our fault. It's just I've got bad genetics. Like I don't have great genetics. I've good genetics for getting somewhat strong. Not as good as my brother. He's even stronger. Like obviously we share similar genetics, but he can get stronger than me. But he can also put on more fat than me. So there you go. Do you know what I mean? And we're in the same family. He always jokes that I can get thin so easily. No, I don't. I have to really watch what I'm doing. And like even after trainings now, I will eat. I might have a McDonald's, but I've earned that McDonald's because I've done loads of exercise, and I get a wrap with salad on it. Now I do get a box of 20 chicken nuggets as well, but on the way up the training, what I have to eat is like say a smoothie with berries, banana, and apple in it. Or what I had today was I had my so I had like a bowl of granola with raisins and nuts in it for breakfast, and then I had an orange and a banana on the way up just to fuel me for training, and then I had my wrap in McDonald's. I had a box of chicken nuggets, yes I did, but that was the last thing I ate, and I had a cup of coffee with it rather than a fizzy drink because I am a bastard for the fizzy drinks. I love them, but I find that I don't crave them as much if I just do a lot of exercise. Maybe if I need it, but you don't need it. But every so often, if you're doing it and you want the Lucozade, like I love a Lucozade after exercising or before exercising, but not too soon. You get a stitch. Um, but you could be a lard arse sitting on your hole doing nothing. And look, I was working in kitchens. I understand. Like, do you ever notice how chefs are often quite overweight? They're making food for everybody else, not themselves, but they're picking at food. And I can tell you, like working in a chipper, like a takeaway, you didn't eat sometimes for 7 hours, and then you were eating fried chicken and chips, and oh, it was fucking amazing. You get fat as a fool. I was getting fat as a fool again because it was delicious. It was so good, it was really good. But you can't be doing that. It's not sustainable. So you gotta watch that stuff. But like it's the same thing with mental health labels. Rather than you actually putting in the work, you can say to yourself, "Oh, it's not my fault. I'm just mentally ill. Um, I'll take a pill and I'll be fine." But you're not, and you wonder why. And then you come off the medication because you can't do as much as you used to be able to do, and it's like, oh, well, now I feel terrible. I need my medication. Well, guess what? The withdrawals are what's causing you to feel shit. If you let them pass, which I have before, it's not that bad. You just need to go, yeah, I feel a bit shit for maybe even a month sometimes, but They do pass. It's when you build up resilience and learn to cope with things, that's how you get better head boys. And also limit your alcohol intake, because I had a few there the weekend, and I'll probably have a few for the Six Nations finale, but I enjoy them. And rather than saying I'm never drinking again, having a few on special occasions and then that's it for a while. So I'm not out every single week drinking. I can't do that. That just fucks with my head completely. You know, you cannot go out every single week, I don't think. And if you're going out every day, well, I mean, of course you're going to be fucked. And if you eat like shit all the time, um, you'll be fucked as well, you know. But you're a human being, and if you were traumatized, you're just reacting to that trauma that you haven't processed and dealt with. And I've done it. I've dealt with my trauma to a degree. Not completely, no, but I'm telling you, it does get better. It does get easier, because I was stuck in such a rut, you know, where I was working myself to the bone, never dealing with the problem, never addressing it. I was at training, I was in the gym, I was doing loads of different things. But I'm doing so well, you know, I'm doing really well here. Never slowing down, and you know, in this grind set that we have now, which is rewarded. So I thought I was doing the right thing, you know, by constantly go, 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 go. You're in college, you're in school, you're off of training, you're in work. Geez, when I think back to it, I never really had a minute. Like, then you'd have your summers when you were younger, and geez, I used to get such anxiety over summer when I was younger, and I understand why now. You know, if your mates have gone away on holidays and there's nobody to go out to, I didn't have the confidence or the wherewithal to go out my own a lot of the times. And sometimes I'd get so anxious I wouldn't leave the house, or at least I go out the back garden, or I might go for a short walk. And now we had a dog, so God rest Archie. Rest in peace, little fella. Love that little guy. I'd walk in, you know, but yeah, sometimes just the nerves would get to me because I wasn't dealing with everything that was causing that anxiety. But now I can do things that I never thought possible, and I don't blame myself for stuff that I couldn't control. And things that I could control, I think, well, I'm going to handle them better in the future. I'm going to deal with them better when they come up, but there's no point in beating myself up about how it was dealt with in the past. And people can say, oh, I would have done this, I would have done that. It's very different when you're in your emotional mind, and I've done that with the dialectical behavioural therapy and the compassion focused therapy that I've done in combination, in unison. What they taught me was basically that shit happened to you, not get over it, but it's not your fault. It happened. You had anxiety. You know, your fight or flight mode was activated. Your amygdala was fucking hijacked, and it's telling you to act in a very primitive way. It's a very much here and now type of thing. You don't have time to go, well, logically, if I do this and then that, this will happen. Now it's get me the fuck out of here. I'm uncomfortable, or I want to hit this fucking fella now. Do you know? You kind of go, oh, I want to leave. I'm dying here. I need to fucking get the hell out of here. I need to run away or freeze up, stiff up. That one happened to me a lot as a kid. And through working on that, I've gotten through it. So it used to be that. It used to be fight, you know, that often it was. But very often, I wouldn't get so ashamed about the fight thing. I'd get more ashamed at the flight or the fight, sorry, the flight and the freeze. So when you're so stiff and anxious that you can't do anything, you can't. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily that you're a pussy, it's that your brain here has fucking hijacked you to go play dead almost because the situation is too stressful. And as I say, autistic, so my threshold for stressful situations could be a lot lower than a neurotypical person. They don't get as turned on. They don't get as affected by loud noises, bright lights, stimuli would be the thing that would really affect me. So if there's loud cars and bright lights here, flashing lights, I'm there just going like fuck. That's already put me in an uncomfortable position where I'm in fight or flight mode. So can you imagine when you add in a confrontational situation to that, how bad that's going to be for me? You're going to dissociate, which I did a lot as a kid that I didn't even realise. And into adulthood, I did it as well, you know. And it started affecting me badly, but I learned to deal with it. And also by just fucking jumping in the deep end, really. Like working in very stressful environments taught me that you've got to learn to deal with it because you're in the shit now. So it's either sink or swim, And I wanted to keep my job, and sometimes I don't know why, but I managed to. I managed to do an okay job, but that stress led to a lot of weight gain because you were eating shite. You know what I mean? And I've noticed that as well. Do you ever notice this? When you're stressed, you might crave a cigarette, but when I'm not stressed, the thought of a cigarette and the smoke just makes me feel sick. I don't drink as much because I don't feel as stressed. I don't feel like I need to quash that stress. But when I have a pint and I'm stressed, it's like, oh, that's fucking amazing. Because it does, it completely just shuts off your inhibitions. You're not anxious. That's why you do stupid shit when you're drunk, you know. And we all fucking do. Believe me, I certainly have. God, some of the shit that I've done when I'm drunk, some of the shit that I've done when I'm sober. But I don't rely on it anymore. You know what I mean? Because I've learned to cope and have better tools now. I have a few drinks if I want to have a few drinks. And look, I know this channel's kind of talking about not drinking and the dangers of it, and it'll kill your motivation. And look, it will if you're doing it all the time. But I'd rather, personally speaking, that if you got a good control on it and you weren't stressed out so much and using it as a crutch, if you had the tools to cope with life, you wouldn't be reaching for the drink. Instead, you'd be going, I can deal with this. This is okay. And if you're not someone, like if you're like me and you don't like nightclubs, which I never did, but yet I go to them all the time, you're going to be someone who drinks an awful lot, and then everybody thought I was the life of the party because I was so drunk that I wasn't in my own head. Basically, I was somebody else almost, and then everybody expects you to be fun Dan, the outgoing extroverted guy when I'm very introverted. So that's what fucks it up. Do you know what I mean? And I also felt like I have to be this person because that's what everybody thinks. That's the guy that everybody's inviting out. They're not inviting the shy introverted fucker who's in the corner, scared of his own shite. No, they're inviting the fun outgoing guy who's drinking all the time and can down shots. At least I gave the fucking impression I could. But I was always the one that would get into trouble. I'd do something fucking stupid. But as you say, you're a human being first and foremost. And mental illnesses aren't necessarily something that you can sympathise with. Sometimes it could be narcissistic personality disorder or Jesus Christ, what's after happening there? Silence. So if you hear narcissistic, you think, oh, self-centered prick, right? Just got out of breath there for a second, a bit lightheaded. But naturally, that's someone you're going to be more guarded around, or someone who's antisocial. You certainly will be guarded around them, won't you? And you should be. And look, diagnoses can be good for certain things, but also it's like, does that condition define them? Maybe someone's a bit of a prick, maybe they're very self-centered, but they grow out of it. Maybe not. But I feel like it gets rid of a lot of hope. Do you know what I mean? Like it really just, and you hear of people being misdiagnosed, and to misdiagnose someone as antisocial or a narcissist is quite bad. You start to think that that person is all evil and whatever, and they might not be, but there might be a shitty situation they're going through. That's extremely difficult to deal with. And look, there are very vindictive and evil people out there, and we're seeing it, we are. And I don't believe anyone's born evil, but if people are surrounded by someone who's looking to one up them and fuck them over all the time, it's just a matter of toxic environment. How does anyone break out of that? It's up to people to make a change. Because like, do you be nice to someone like that and they take you for a fucking ride? I don't know. I'd never encourage you to just trust these people blindly because they will take advantage of you, and you have to be very aware of that. But what I would say more so is, don't be going around trying to diagnose people. Did you ever do that? I certainly do that. Oh, that person must have narcissistic personality disorder. That person must be antisocial personality disorder. That person must be borderline because they're fucking crazy, um, or that person's a bit asocial, they must have autism, and obsessive compulsive disorder and obsessive compulsive personality disorder, by the way, are two very different things. Um, just FYI, if you're ever interested. So you've got three clusters: cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C. Cluster A, you've got schizoid, you've got schizotypal, paranoid. In cluster B, you've got borderline, narcissistic, antisocial, and histrionic. And then in cluster C, you've got obsessive compulsive, um, dependent, and avoidant. So they'd be more the like I need you, that kind of way. I need you, I need you, I need. But avoiding people, there's a lot of overlap there. Avoiding personality disorder. Um, I think they call it AVPD, or did they just call it APD? No, I think that might be, yeah, okay, might be AVPD. Um, there's a lot of overlap with autism, so I'm always interested, given that I have autism. Um, I'm always interested to see what that overlap is or why conditions might overlap. And you'll actually find a lot of overlap. So doesn't that just show you, are these labels actually helpful, or are we all just fucked up trying to navigate a fucked up world? I'm all in favour of that, but avoiding people tend to be very discouraged. Very much doubting their own abilities, like the anti-narcissist, if you will. Where the narcissist will go, I'm great, I deserve all these opportunities, I'm better than everybody else. The avoidant will go, well, I'm not as good as this person, and they're better than me, so I'm discouraged from even applying for this job, even though they might be completely overly qualified for it, but they're very in their own minds, always very anxious. I think social anxiety disorder, sad. It is sad. God help them, but it goes hand in hand with this condition a lot of times, because they are very avoidant, as the name would suggest. They don't take opportunities. But how many of us feel discouraged, or are shitting ourselves because something just feels out of reach for us? How many? There's a lot of people like that, I would say. Anxiety is a perfectly normal response. We want to look good, we want to impress. We don't want to fail, of course not. A lot of these things I feel like are just human responses, and some of us are just stronger in the way we express them. Somebody may be more prone to fighting because they've always been around people who want to fuck them over, or who always fought them and beat them up. So now they're like, I'll fuck you before you fuck me. Do you know? Then you've got prick bullies who would be more narcissistic, where I'm superior to you, so I'll put you down all the time. I would say more arrogant fuckers, but I mean, arrogant fuckers exist in life. That person might get an absolute humbling, and then they're never the same again, and they might realise I'm an arsehole and I need to change, or else I'm not going to have any friends. Where it becomes a problem is when people are rigid and so set in their ways that they never change. And look, some people are just arseholes, if they're not called out and not kept in check enough, they'll continue to be arseholes, because sadly it serves people a lot of the time to be complete cunts to each other, you know. Because if you see these people who are diagnosed with narcissism, antisocial, they'll fuck you over because they believe they are better. Well, see, I said this before, I don't think that antisocials genuinely believe they're better than you. I think they know that they're pieces of shit, but they know that it's a dog eat dog kind of world, and I need to take from you what I can get. I'm a piece of shit, but so are you. So we're all pieces of shit, and you'll take from me if you can. So I'm going to take from you before you can take from me, essentially. A narcissist is more, I am entitled to this over you because I'm better than you. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And then with the borderline, it's more so, I need you because I don't know who I am. So you need to basically give me a personality, personality. Getting those T's in there. But it's a very complex thing. But a borderline, if I do have a UPD, and there's certainly traits of a BPD, as it's also known, it's very scattered, because there's push and pull. And you can imagine, like, if you're abandoned, like I talked about Dennis Nielsen and Jeffrey Dahmer, But my dad was there one minute, then he was gone, then he was back, then it wasn't very pleasant, then he was gone the other next minute, then he was back. Then there was the divorce. You know, me and my brother would often hold out for things and get our hopes up, only to have them absolutely fucking crushed. There was always a weird situation as well where other family members would be staying together in a hotel. We'd always have to fucking leave early for some reason, you know, and we were never able to see our cousins because our dad couldn't stand our auntie, even though we really wanted to see our cousins. So that was kind of like, you know, you're never really holding out hope, but you also think you don't matter, you're not important, and there's the lack of self esteem with borderlines. It would explain a lot, to be fair. I've gotten a handle on the anger. You know, I can be very impulsive, yeah, but everything's from a good place, I believe. But I would find that I don't believe in myself, and I'm very anxious by situations that should be opportunities and seen as a good thing. But I don't see them that way because I don't believe in myself, and that could be more avoidant even. Um, sure, I can be quick to aggression, but to be honest with you, you know, like I don't think you should ever give someone rights over yourself. And like borderline people can be abusive, absolutely. People who have that diagnosis, anyway, I should say, but they can certainly go, I was abused, therefore I have the right to abuse you. You know, the world is shit, and it's almost a very antisocial outlook. You know, you're a useless prick, and you know, we're all suffering. You notice that, like, I worked with a girl who was borderline and very fucking pessimistic, very condescending. You know, we all have shit in our lives, so you just have to get on with it. You know, and oh, I've been doing this longer than you, and you know, all this crap, and life is miserable. It wasn't I'm great, but it's, you know, we've all got shit that we've got to do, and my shit is worse than your shit. I take a worse shit than you. But rather than going, I'm better than you, it's a reverse kind of way of, not necessarily I'm better than you, but my problems are more important than your problems because I had worse trauma than you ever had. Trauma's bad regardless, you know, so like, fuck off with that shit. She really did my head in. She was a fucking disaster to work with. So I'm just saying it does happen, you know. She was moody, she was rude to customers, she was very opinionated on stuff that she'd no idea about. And she met the stereotype for borderline personality disorder. Always changing the colour of her hair. Couldn't decide if she was gay, bisexual, or heterosexual. You know, changes no one would want her. She was a fucking nightmare to deal with. Um, but then you had to work with her all day, and that was a fucking experience in itself. Oh, one minute it'd be grand, and then she'd be screaming at you and very, oh, pay attention, do that. And then it'd be, oh, I'm really sorry about that. Oh my god, I feel terrible. And you'd be kind of there going, yeah, all right. You know what I mean? It's hard to get to put your fucking finger on it. So I thought, no, well, I don't have that. You know, I'm not like that. I'm not that bad. And it says that a lot of people who have BPD can do well in work settings because it's something they feel actually they're contributing some sort of value to. So you can kind of get around it. And I definitely thought, yeah, look, work is somewhere where maybe I can take my mind away from all my shit going on. Um, but certainly more impulsive when I wasn't in work or school, you know, or I was getting into trouble. Um, Addictions to caffeine and alcohol, cigarettes even, and then smoking weed and taking other illicit narcotics, cocaine, to mention a few. But it's not as if my upbringing was hunky dory, and a lot of people's isn't, and they're just trying to cope with that because they didn't get the love and support that they needed. Or one minute it's there and the next it's not, you know. Like my mum could be very loving, and she is for the most part, but then you could say something minor that might be a throwaway comment. Like I remember before I said, she was telling me about something that happened to her because of, especially when I was younger, and my autism would make me sound quite monotone. So I said, "Oh, good for you." It might have sounded a bit like, "Oh, good for you," you know, kind of sneering. She took it that way anyway. You know, I was kind of just going, "Oh, good for you," because a teacher of mine had said it before. I kind of was a bit like a parrot. I used to just copy what I heard. Quack, Polly in my pocket. Squawk. Pretty word. But I was a bit like a parrot in many ways, to be fair. So I just said, "Oh, good for you." She ripped my head off, said I was an ungrateful little prick and all this stuff, and she said these exact words to me. Um, so I'm there kind of shaking, and this happened often, where you don't know if you're coming or going, like what'll set her off. But then she'd be extremely loving, but also could wallow a little bit, and sometimes feel sorry for herself. Now, to be fair, she had a lot to contend with, and she did raise two kids on her own with no help from my dad. Really, no help at all. He would certainly be more narcissistic in the sense of, you know, that's great, but you need to be doing more. And sure, I do this, and I do that. My problems are a bit worse than yours again. Um, just repeating shite. Like I said there, I was a bit like a parrot, but he would just repeat phrases he'd heard, the same shite over and over again. You'll be 30 before you know it, all this crap, basically saying life will get away from you. Something my brother said that he's sick of hearing from my dad, and so am I, to be honest with you. But it's basically going that, you need to be doing all these things, and then when I graduated college, yeah, but the real work starts now. Get yourself a job. And he doesn't seem to appreciate that I'm trying, but I'm not getting anything back. You have to do an interview process, and then you get a job. I'm doing interviews, but I'm sending CV out and not getting fucking anything. And I keep saying it to him, but I'm confident enough now to go, no, I'm doing enough. You're not getting in on me here. I know I'm doing enough. Before it would have been, oh yeah, I should be doing more. I'm doing as much as I can. I'm just not getting fucking anything back. That's why I see him rarely these days, because it's just a disaster. He's such a negative person. And you'll notice with him as well, and all my dad's family, you'll see them for like a week, maybe two, and think, oh, they're not so bad. Narcissistic people are very good at putting on a good show. And then when you get in deeper, you'll start to notice they make you drop your guard an awful lot to get you in, get you in the door. When you're in there, though, you'll start to experience what it's really like, and it's very toxic. There's constant little put downs. You're not doing enough. Back in my day, we had it harder than you. You're lucky that someone's paying for that for you. Like I said before, my cousin was going to college and it was being paid for by my auntie. And boy, did she let him know about it. And my granddad goes, "Oh, you're lucky. Not everyone will pay for you to go up to college. Back in my day, no one would pay for me to go up to college." So I stepped up thinking, well, he can't whinge and moan about it with me because I got a grant, a government grant. So I was kind of like, well, the old fucker won't whinge at me for this. So he was like, "Oh yeah, you going to college too? Your parents paying for it?" And I was like, "No, getting a college grant from the government." "Oh, not everyone gets a grant. Back in my day, we didn't have grants." And that can be a bit of old miserable cunt, which he certainly is. But um, everything will be turned into a negative. Back in my day, we didn't have this. Basically, I had everything harder than you, and my dad will just make out the same thing. Life is hard, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. If you take joy in anything, he'll always just fucking suck it out immediately. And that can be an old Catholic Irish thing as well, of just being miserable. You're never allowed to have any pride. Pride is one of the seven deadly sins, as they say. And us Irish really took that one to heart, didn't we? Fucking hell. Oh, it's always the negative. Oh, you want to stop showing that off, or I'll give it to Johnny down the road, rather than letting you have any joy with the new toy that you've gotten. Um, yeah, like it's something that you need to watch out for. And my family have been very narcissistic in the way they've acted. They say the right things, but they're very hollow creatures. And if you want to look at something like to spot dangerous people, be wary of someone who asks you all about yourself, but never shares anything personal about themselves. There's actually an interesting case study on Jimmy Savile, that fucking odious creature, but um, you'll notice he always made stupid little jokes, the woo and all that crap, whenever he was asked about his personal life, why he didn't have any girlfriends or marriages or nothing. And he'd make some stupid joke, and then some, stupid noises he used to always make, ooh, and all that crap. Don't know how people didn't cop on to him sooner. He was fucking obviously a creep. a weirdo, dirty fucking nonce as well. But he thought so highly of himself, and narcissistic people like him will give to charities and do all these things. That's fucking leverage over you. You're up here now. You're in my debt, and the last place you want to be in is in a narcissistic person's debt. They will use that against you. That's when they've got a hold over you. If they're your boss, or if they've given you a large sum of money, if you owe them money, you're fucked. They will never let you live that down. And they will go behind your back to other people and they'll pretend like you're doing things that you're not actually doing to make you look bad. And I've had bosses and managers do that to me, and it's exhausting. It's fucking exhausting to deal with. Or telling you you're doing something wrong when you're actually not. But the moment has kind of passed, so they get away with it, and you look like a psycho if you call them out for it. Do you see what I mean? They're not bad actors. They're excellent at it. They're really good at it. And you'll believe the bullshit sandwich that they're selling you. They are excellent at manipulating. So you'll never see it coming unless you're paying close attention. And how normally, like, I'm not saying go around on your guard all the time, but if they give you enough reason to feel bad, like if you notice you start feeling more on edge in their company, start to take note of what they're saying to you and how they're saying it. Like, are they making you feel terrible about yourself and they're always boasting about their achievements? Or whenever you say anything good about yourself, it's always, well, I did something better and I'm better than you. And look, we can do that as human beings because in the world we live in now, it's all about one-upmanship, and I'm guilty of doing it. But it's when it's constant. Like with my granddad basically making out as if I was given all the same opportunities as you, I would have been successful. When in reality, he's done nothing with his life. Never did. Never cared about anyone else. Just moaned about how hard life was, even though he never made an effort with anybody. And once praised just for aging, being over 90. We've done nothing in all those years. You think of all the elderly people that have got advice for you. He has nothing. So it's tragic, but he's getting old now, and I kind of think to myself, will I try and salvage any more of a relationship? I already did, and there was nothing but positives from what I could see about living with him. He had everything paid for. His electricity bills were paid. Everything when you get to that age. I think when you're 70 even it starts getting paid for. But he starts charging me for electricity and complaining when I'm late giving the money to him. And waiting like an old miser for the money, like fucking Ebenezer Scrooge. I thought, I'm not being spoken to like this by you ratty little old fuck. No. And I know, look, you're not supposed to say that about your grandparents. You're supposed to respect them. Nah, bullshit. I believe respect is earned, and he has not earned any respect. He was always a miserable prick. He never had any time for me and my brother. He always mocked us for being overweight. Didn't appreciate any of the hard work I did for him and doing up his garden for him. So, fuck him. It's something I've had to come to terms with, but I have, and I'm comfortable saying that, and I don't give a shit what my spoiled family say about that because they've done nothing for him, until there was money in it for them, and that's a very narcissistic thing as well. Cutting the grass for him took 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and then I removed all the shite, like all the overgrown bits of ivy from the top of his shed. I trimmed the hedge because, as I say, I loved my grandmother, Lena, God rest her soul as well. And I thought, for her, I'm going to do it, not for him. But I loved her. I always remember talking to the neighbours next door. I loved them. April was Pat and April. Really liked them. But my dad and my uncles were giving out to me for talking to them. Oh, nosy fuckers want to know everything. Another narcissistic sign. People who are very paranoid, about anyone asking you anything. We've spoken to them our whole fucking lives. Why can we not speak to them now? They're an elderly couple. They're pleasant. They're grand. But no, they want to know everything. They want to know everyone's business. So do you. The hypocrisy of it. Another narcissistic trait. So look out for that stuff. I've noticed it in my own family, so I feel like it's important to let you guys know. I've gotten a crash course in it, But I've had friends as well that always put me down and always team up, They always team up against me to put me down. Which is fucking exhausting to deal with. And you do feel weaker for it. You feel like, oh, what's the fucking point? And when you haven't had an awful lot of friends when you're younger because you are more asocial, but you're good at sport, so, you're lonely, you're vulnerable. They would just put me down about any mistake I made in games, and it's fucking exhausting to deal with. It's one of the reasons why I felt so much pressure to perform well every week, and why I put so much pressure on myself. And you don't want to be doing that. Now, if I play rugby, it's for enjoyment only. I'm not putting that pressure on myself again, because it nearly broke me. It nearly destroyed me. Um, and people will be all upset when you do something extreme, when they're the ones that fucking caused it, and then they don't stop afterwards. They'll keep doing it, which is sick, but it's true. So you got to watch out for that, guys. In terms of someone who's antisocial, because I think narcissistic and antisocial and borderline, I'm just going to say as well, the most outright dangerous people. Narcissists will plan your downfall. Very good at planning, very good at making you go down, them go up. Do you know what I mean? Keeping you fucking down with a fucking strong boot. Antisocials, I think, are more, lads that are staring at you like they've got that really intense fucking stare. They like to evoke fear in you. So look at that. That's a very antisocial thing. Someone who gets pleasure out of your fear. Narcissists want your admiration. Antisocials want your fear. That's something I think you should look out for. And if you look at any of the, like Carl Panzeram is someone I spoke about, meant to be a hulking man, and I think he seemed to get off on causing fear in people. Big man, farmer, and also an army man at one stage. Well, he was too unruly for them, but people said that he was an intimidating presence, and he would have definitely gotten off on that. Even when Henry Lesser, the security guard, the prison guard that he liked, left his truncheon or baton down on the bench, you can bet your arse that Carl Panzeram got great joy in holding that up to him and going, never turn your back on me again. I'm fucking dangerous. Like leaning in, you can almost, it's even giving me chills on the back of my neck saying it. Don't know if you're getting the same, but that's a real antisocial thing. Basically going, I could crush you, I could fucking destroy you. You know what I mean? Like, you watch your back because I'm very dangerous. Lying, cheating, deceiving. They love deceiving people. But they'll just outright threaten people as well. Someone who's very aggressive and very intimidating, always threatening people, but just getting into fights for the sake of it. Antisocial because they're impulsive and they're actually quite dead inside, as are narcissists, but they need that supply. Yum yum yum. With borderlines, and look, if I'm going to go off my own example, like, I've got traits, but what I would say is, if I see someone I really like, it almost feels like that person is perfect. I need to be with them because they'll make me a better person. You know what I mean? But then you want to do everything with that person. And I can understand they come across as very intense. Autism wouldn't explain that, but borderline would a bit more. I guess I just appreciate good people a bit more because I've been surrounded by so many toxic people. I want to be with the good people. I want you with me all the time, but I appreciate it, and it's been very intense before. It has, and I even got to the point where I almost threatened to kill myself because there was a girl I was convinced I was in love with. And that's really hard to explain, particularly with autism. There has to be something else. There's an emotional fucking wreck, and that would sum it up. Emotionally unstable. So am I telling you guys I'm dangerous? Watch me, I'm dangerous. No, I'm saying there's people that have all these different types of traits. If someone's being aggressive and intimidating, like, if they are genuinely, you're well within your rights to defend yourself. Don't fucking take that shit from anybody. And if someone's doing stuff behind your back, try and catch them out. Play the game. Make them think that they're so smart and above you, because they already think they are. You couldn't possibly catch me out. Don't call them out or confront them. Try to catch them out. Follow them. Do what they're doing to you. Think like them. And catch them in the act. And when you call them out, it's going to be so sweet. And yeah, look, these people are dangerous, but you will destroy them. And they've no comeback. They will be fucking destroyed. Now there's the narcissistic injury, which is something where they've been banged to rights, or they feel like they've been disrespected, and they'll just start throwing haymakers, or they get violent like they can, but fuck them. Don't let anyone walk all over you guys. problem with these people is they're very vindictive and they've got the energy to do it. A lot of us would just be worn out, but they can stay and do it because they need it. Without it, they're nothing. They're hollow shells of human beings. Do watch out for it, because it can get to that point. And mind yourselves, guys. All right. It's been a good discussion, I think. Really enjoyed doing it, and love to get your thoughts. Mind yourselves, guys. See you in the next one.